Hey everyone, so today's lesson is on how to make a histogram. So real quick to backtrack, if you have not already watched the lesson on what a frequency table is and how to make a frequency table, you need to go back and watch that one because that's what all of this over here is. We've got our frequency table already set up, and it's an example that's actually used in that video, so you're kind of familiar with the numbers. So if you haven't already watched that video, please go make sure you watch that. If you have, then we'll jump right into it. So if you notice, we're dealing with our jersey number example again. This is the one that had the bigger range, and so we had to divide our data up into these 20 intervals, or 4 intervals, 20 digits at a time, or 20 data points at a time. So we've got our data, we tallied, and we found the frequency. Again, just to recap, frequency means how often something occurs, or how many times a number, in this case, how many times a number is shown up in this data interval. So what I'm doing is over here, I've got my histogram already kind of drawn, but I do want to explain where I got these numbers from and kind of help you start from there. So when you're making a histogram, you're going to have your X and Y axis drawn just like you would for any other graph. And then you have to figure out what goes on your X and what goes on your Y. Your data always goes on your X. So the data intervals are what you're going to put over here. You've already done all the hard work, which is coming up with these intervals and tallying and figuring out the frequency. So all we're doing is transferring this information onto a graph. So it's pretty simple. All you have to do, like I said, your data goes here. So those intervals that you came up with, those even intervals, you're going to write down here. Now you're going to want to make them into little sections, kind of like I did. I put a little dash to break up each interval, each section. And what this is representing, these data intervals down here are representing the jersey numbers. So make sure when you're creating histograms that you do label your histogram. So our x-axis again is the jersey numbers. And we just got that from there. That's what all these data points represent, are jersey numbers. It tells us that in the example. So make sure you label when you're creating your histogram. And I even drew a little cute little line over here to make sure that you know that this is where we got these numbers from. Okay, so then moving on to our y-axis. Here, it seems pretty simple, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I didn't just come up with those numbers out of the blue. These numbers are your frequency. And again, I drew a cute little line and I'm pointed to where it goes. So when you're labeling, you actually label this frequency. Pretty easy. You're labeling it frequency because we're trying to figure out how often or how frequent these jersey numbers occur. So to get the numbers that I just did 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I just looked at my frequencies and I figured out what the maximum is and what the minimum is. The minimum was 3, but it was so much easier for me to just count by ones up to 5. You could do that. You could have done it by 2s. You could have done 2, 4, 6, 8. And then like did your little dashes for the odd numbers in between. Now, this really all depends on what your frequencies are. You know, if I had if this was a 15, you know, we would have to go all the way up to 15 or make sure that 15 was included. So this is just on a case-by-case basis. It all is determined on what your frequency is showing, and that's how you kind of create this over here. But now that we know what our X and our Y are, all you have to do is draw the graph. So from 0 to 19, there's a frequency of 5. So what that means is you're going to take your little interval. We've got it blocked off right here. You're going to go all the way up to 5 and go across and then shade that dude in. All right. So what this is telling me is that from 0 to 19, there are 5 jersey numbers. That's how frequent that is. From 0 to 19, 5 of those jerseys are between 0 and 19, okay? So then moving on to the next point, or the next little interval, we've got 20 to 39. 20 to 39, we've got a frequency of 4. So you're gonna start over here, you're gonna go all the way up to 4. And it's okay if they're not perfectly even. We do want them as even as possible. But I do understand it's hard to get everything perfect. I'm not perfect. So we went all the way up to 4 and then shaded it in. I'm using different colors just for you guys to be able to see the difference. It is not required that you use different colors, but it makes it easier for me to see and to explain to you guys what we're doing, because if it was all the same color, we would just kind of be running all of this together. But then looking at our next interval, we've got 40 to 59. So go over to your frequency table, and that's a 3. So we're going to take this section up and over to 3. And I'm going to do polka dots in this one. And again, this is totally personal preference. I like to make mine look really different from one another so I can for sure tell what's happening on my histogram. And then our last little interval, we've got, let's see, 60 to 79. So 60 to 79, we've got to go back over to our frequency table, and it says that we've got 4. So we're going to actually go all the way back up to 4 again. So over here, you're going to have to go up a little bit as well. And then I'll do stripes on this one. You don't have to color yours in at all, okay? I want to make sure that point is very clear. You don't have to color yours in, but you do have to make sure that those lines are very clean. I want to know exactly that from 60 to 79, there are 4 jerseys with those numbers on it. But this is how you create a histogram based on a frequency table. We've got our labels. Down here are our jersey numbers, and over here is the frequency at which those occur in our data set. But this is a histogram, and that's pretty much it. But like I said, this is going to be really confusing if you didn't watch the video on how to create a frequency table. So make sure you go watch that. But yeah, until next time, talk to you later.